Hello and welcome back to I'll Have What She's Having. The podcast is bringing you out of your wouldn't that be nice phase and into your oh my God, yes phase where we do big pleasure, big dreams, and we live life by our terms. So today and for the next 3 episodes, we're going to go on an orgasmic adventure, my favorite kind of adventure. And by that, I mean, we're going to look at orgasms in a whole new way. And at the end of these 3 episodes, you'll not only have more context, but I don't think you'll ever have the same orgasmic experience again. I can almost guarantee it because knowledge is power, and so many of us are having the experience that we know is possible. Really, what it takes is knowing more is possible to bring more in. Most of us are just missing information. Our bodies know exactly how to do this. We were literally built for it. We have an entire organ that has no other purpose than this. We have a complex erectile network that literally facilitates pleasure on the deepest levels. But if we don't know what's possible, we don't know how to look for it. So let's talk about what's possible. I'm so excited for you and your orgasm. But first, just a few quick announcements. So, first is that during this orgasmic exploration, if you have a moment where you go, oh my goddess, yes, but also how? And wow, that sounds a little bit too much for me to do alone. I've got you. I've got a few spots left for my January only promotion of 10% off my signature coaching program, Wild, Worthy, and Orgasmic. So, in just 12 weeks, your sex life could be completely transformed, even in just 6 weeks. Most of my clients are honestly speechless by the end of our time together because they can't believe how different their lives are now. And you really don't have to do this alone. Orgasmic Reclamation changes your entire life, not just your sex life, and we can do this together. So do yourself a favor and book a free call with me using the link in the show notes, and let's talk about making 2026 your most orgasmic year. So, second, I have 2 beautiful women's retreats on the horizon. First is Wild Women Rising, a reclamation of wildness, sisterhood, and pleasure. And this is located near Vancouver, BC in May of 2026. And I also have a week-long immersion pleasure retreat in Mexico next February 2027. This is called Wild Women Unleashed. You can start your next year off with the most revolutionary, in-depth event I've ever created. Since women have been saying that my 3-day retreat was life-changing, I can't wait to see what happens when we have a whole week together. You can find all the details at krishall.ca. Applications are open. Apply as soon as possible to grab the best prices because these will sell out. Your wild woman is waiting to be reclaimed. I cannot wait. All right. So first off, if you're watching this as a video, you're going to notice that I look a little bit different right now. Yes, I am adding in a new section post-production because I realized this needs to be said first. So I know I can be a little guilty about like jumping the gun and being a bit like, oh my God, here's the solution. I'm so excited to get all up in this knowledge that I carry around about sex and sexy solutions that sometimes I forget to start at the very beginning. And at the very beginning is this very question. Why can't I orgasm? Why isn't my orgasm amazing? And there was honestly a moment where I considered calling this entire podcast, Why Can't I Orgasm? Because it is one of the most common, tender, vulnerable questions that I hear from so many women and people in general. So before we talk about reclamation, we need to talk about why orgasm might not be happening in the first place. Because if you can't orgasm, it's not because you're broken. It's not because your body is somehow defective, and it's definitely not because you're somehow bad at sex. It's because orgasm requires certain conditions, and for a lot of us, those conditions were never taught, modeled, or even made safe. So, a lot of you know that I have struggled with orgasm many times, but I want to remind you, you're not alone in this. This is part of why I'm passionate about this work. It would be actually really hard to do this job if I hadn't experienced it myself and know what the struggle felt like, and what pretty good feels like, and what life-changing orgasmic expansion feels like. I've experienced it all. I've cried from frustration of not being able to. I've had partners that finally showed me what it really feels like and been so sad for my younger self that didn't get that experience. I've had to go into fantasy in the middle of partnered sex to make it happen. I've used vibrators after sex without my partner knowing because I was so ashamed to show them that I hadn't been satisfied by our experience and still wanted that release. I've had cervical orgasms, breast orgasms, armpit orgasms, foot orgasms, full body energetic orgasms, and so many clitoral orgasms. And they all feel different. Every single one in every single place in every single moment. And every person experiences it differently. For example, my cervical orgasm relaxes my entire body and I actually collapse in like the deepest way I ever do. And my partner literally has to hold me up and it feels like I just touched the universal consciousness of God. Like I've pushed and pushed for orgasm and not had it happen. I've experienced love orgasms that feel like my chest is literally breaking open and I felt connected to the universe. And I was alone. I was alone in that experience. That was self-pleasure. I've cried during sex for amazing reasons where it was like I didn't even know why I was crying, but I was deeply in that experience and kept having sex. And it was some of the best sex I'd ever had because I was deep in this experience of crying. I've cried during sex for bad reasons and had to completely stop. I've had days where I can have 7, 10 orgasms in a row that all feel expansive and wonderful, and days where I just can't seem to. I've had orgasms that last, you know, half an hour, and I've had orgasms that feel like, oh, was that it? Ugh. I thought there'd be more today. I thought we were really building up to something quote unquote big. I've been there. I've been everywhere. I'm here with you. I've been in the trenches. I've been on the other side, and it's not linear, right? There are days when I have extremely amazing orgasms, and then the next day it just won't seem to happen. Remember that wherever you are in your cycle, too, for people who experience their cycles, that will greatly impact your ability to orgasm and what orgasms you have. So just remember all of these things. It's all normal. So let's talk about some of the most common reasons people can't orgasm. Honestly, emotional blocks, fear of being seen, fear of vulnerability, fear of letting go. Sometimes it's shame, fear of being judged, fear of wanting too much, fear of being sexual at all based on what we've been taught. Emotional blocks are the biggest thing that stands in people's way of having orgasms. Sometimes it's worthiness, right? A deep, quiet belief that pleasure is for other people and not for you. Sometimes it's information, right? Incorrect stimulation, not knowing how your body actually works, being too numb and disconnected from sensation, or too sensitive, where you're overwhelmed and guarding and bracing. And very often, it's also the mind, being in your head, performing, trying to make something happen. And here's something really important to understand is that most people don't struggle with orgasm because they're incapable. They struggle because there's one or more of these essential pieces that are missing, right? Like, who here knows the definition of an orgasm or what it actually is? Most of us weren't taught that, don't know, and the information isn't even readily available. So, let me tell you, the orgasm has 3 components. Number 1 is pleasure. Number 2 is expansion. And number 3 is a mind shift. So my teacher, Layla Martin, describes an orgasm when pleasure meets movement and creates an alchemy that shifts your mind state. And I know that's almost too complex to hear, but this is a really big thing because you can experience pleasure without expansion. You can experience sensation without a mind shift. You can experience energy moving in your body without it landing as an orgasm. For an orgasm to happen, you need all 3 pieces. You need pleasure, expansion, and a mind shift. And most of us were never taught that. We were taught that the orgasm is this finish line. We were taught about clitoral climaxes and not the other types. We were taught about this as some sort of goal. But orgasm is actually a state change. It's a shift in consciousness. It's a moment where presence, sensation, and surrender meet. Which brings me to this. No 2 orgasms are ever the same for the same person, in different moments, in different parts of the body. And the more you try to force the same experience you've had before, the less likely it is to happen. And so if you can let go and relax and accept that the same orgasm will never happen again the same way, oh my gosh, you just realize that you just have to be so present. You have to be so deeply present that all the rest fades away. That the past, that the future, that the hopes and dreams, it just has to fade away. Orgasms require relaxation. They require breath. They require presence. And they require allowing and surrender. It is the ultimate yin state of a woman to surrender and allow orgasm to flow through you. You cannot force it. You have to allow it. You have to surrender to it, because there is a difference between climax and orgasm. A climax is something that you can measure and think about and be present for. But an orgasm is like being flung off a cliff. You have to surrender into the experience. Like for me, I know I can't have anything hard near my head because I will thrash around. Like I lose control of my body. That's how I know that it's an orgasm, because I no longer have the ability to control myself. I am so deeply in the sensation and the experience of the present moment. It requires you to feel, not perform. It requires you to be so deeply present. And so I'm going to go over some of the beauties of reclamation, but this is why it matters. This is why we're going to go into the 3 steps: reclamation, expansion, and then mastery of orgasm. And oh my gosh, it's the beginning of this journey. And the goal isn't mastery, especially in this first step, this first episode. The goal is access, right? Make it happen however you can. Make this orgasm happen. Use a vibrator, use fantasy, use whatever tools you have available, and don't bypass anything. Feel it all. Start recognizing what pleasure feels like in your body. Start to unwind the shame. Start standing in the truth that you are worthy of pleasure. These are the first steps. And so now that we've laid that foundation, let's talk about orgasmic reclamation and these 3 steps. All right, so let's talk about orgasms. These are the key things you need to know. First of all, there are all different kinds of stages of orgasmic development, and there is nothing wrong with any stage. Every step is essential and beautiful, and there's no, oh, I'm not there yet. People skip steps, people go here and go there and come back. You don't have to do this linearly. In fact, most of us won't. And secondly, is the way that a woman orgasms or a person orgasms really mirrors the way that they experience life. Some people don't tap into life. They're disconnected from their sensations and from their body. Some people can experience climax and pleasure, but they're pushing themselves, performing, and keeping score. So the question is, can you slow down? Can you savor the moment? Can you surrender and slow and show up for what's happening? And how much can you get out of your head? Being great at orgasm is the same as being great at meditation. Because if you're good at orgasm, you know you can't force it. You know every day is going to be different. You know that your body has the answers. You know that all you can do is be available and open and never force. So first you develop the technique, and then you develop your style. It opens you up to a greater experience of life, a love of life, connection to life, to spiritual truth, self-empowerment, a new relationship, literally, to life itself, and embracing life in a greater way. These are all characteristics of meditation, but also of orgasm. And I always like to say that if you want to become a master of orgasm and of sex, develop a good meditation practice. And it doesn't really matter what that is. It just means you're sitting, you're being present, and you're practicing that very, very, very essential skill of being in tune with your body, your emotions, your sensations, and the present moment. The next thing I want you to remember as we enter these conversations is that orgasms are a goal, but they're not the same as any other type of goal. Or rather, they're in a different category. And what I mean by that is, sure, of course. Like, I get this question all the time. Like, okay, but you're saying don't think about it as a goal, but also I want an orgasm. So how do I reconcile the two? And so this is the answer. You create your goal, right? And then your job is to be so present that all your thoughts around this goal dissolve and no longer exist while you're working towards it. That's when the magic happens. So if you can be so present in the moment that your goal of orgasm dissolves, that's when you're going to actually achieve your goal. It's like your goal of meditating, right? You can always bring it back to that example because meditation is such a good example because it's a mind shift. It's a different state of consciousness. So the last thing I want you to know is that desire for an orgasm is to go down the path of discovery, of self-discovery. You educate yourself about your own body. You learn about the capacity of your body, the power of your body. And you learn that orgasm is a gateway to greater states of consciousness, flow, spiritual realization, empowerment, manifestation, everything. There's a whole world in there. So remember, we don't need to do it all at once, and you don't have to have it all down. And you're really going to jump between the different stages. And most of all, meet yourself where you're at. Don't push yourself to future places that you're not. Don't judge yourself for not being there. We're all exactly where we are for a reason. Let it be present. Let it be exactly where it is and let that be okay. The earlier stages, we're going to focus on access and permission. And then later stages, focus on presence and expansion and mastery. So with that being said, let's get into those 3 phases of orgasmic development. So these will mirror the 3 episodes that we're going to get into orgasm in a deeper way. So this episode is all about reclamation. Phase 1. It's permission, it's safety, it's access. This is for people who might be sexually shut down. They might really need empowerment and celebration on a basic level, right? They might need to know that it's okay to masturbate, to fantasize, to explore porn, to even need directions on how to touch themselves. This is kind of why Cosmo was created, right? Needing of not expansive instruction, but really basic instruction. It's the foundation, the sex education we all needed. How to engage with the sexual world. And if you're thinking, okay, but I might be past that. Why is this episode for me? Trust me, there are elements of this that you might not have considered that really lay the foundation for a larger, more expansive practice. So the next phase, the next step, the next episode will be orgasmic expansion. So here's where we redefine orgasm, talk about deepening sensation. And this is where people who are experiencing some kind of orgasm, but they need a new definition. They want a bigger experience. Everything's sexually functioning just fine, but oh, you just want something more. Maybe they use porn and their orgasms are more so with their clit and they want to experience different types of orgasms. It's a phase where we're training away from goal-oriented sex. We're training to be in the moment, showing up for whatever arises, the openness, the surrender, and really tuning into the greater orgasmic wisdom that lives within us all. And then the third phase, mastery, we look at using our sexual energy for healing, for power, and life force. We work a lot with the orgasmic expansion techniques to look into spiritual development and healing and manifestation and how to use your sexuality as an actual fuel in your life. So this could be sex magic and how to store and process sexual energy. And all these stages really weave together, but especially 2 and 3, you'll swap back between them all the time as your different areas of orgasmic mastery really start to develop. And so, yeah, that really taps into these phases aren't linear, and you may revisit reclamation many times. You may have different stages in your life where it's essential to go back there. And I know that in the past, I've been really heavily on the, like vibrators and porn and fantasy are not great. The truth is, and where I really want to catch myself here, is that they're not shameful. They're supportive. As long as they're being used in a supportive way, there is kind of an analogy though. So we can compare orgasmic phases and orgasmic steps and stages to your diet, let's say. So we could say that in reclamation, we're kind of getting all out of all the processed food and junk food, and you're introducing healthier foods. But you can still have the same junk food. right? Like just because you went to McDonald's doesn't mean that your diet isn't great and healthy for you. Like you can recognize that it's just kind of a momentary thing that made you feel good and whatever, instead of it being like an every week, every day kind of thing. So, like expansion, we would look at variety, we would look at depth and listening to the body, and like, to use the diet analogy, eating a lot more vegetables. And then with mastery, we're really looking at like the diet that works for you. And like there's a place for all the foods in all their different moments, but it's really being mindful about your relationship with all those tools, right? Like just because you go eat some junk food like, doesn't mean your diet is completely gone, but you need to find the moderation. You need to find the fun, find the naughty. And again, is it empowering for you? And I'm here to celebrate every single step wherever you are. Welcome. Okay, so before we move forward, I'll tell you my story around the reclamation phase, the discovery. So the thing is, I didn't grow up religious. I didn't grow up thinking it was wrong. I grew up experimenting. I grew up with supportive friends. I grew up with lots of body confidence. And I remember being so grateful that I could share those views with my friends and I could see them expand into their own confidence. It was really beautiful. I had my first taste of clitoral stimulation when I was quite young, maybe 7 or 8, and like I felt the sheets kind of rub against my naked body and I went, "Oh my god, what's that?" And then I didn't find it again for years. I remember being like, there was something there. Like, what is that? And I didn't have anybody to ask and I didn't know how to ask. Um, all my closest friends, except for one, started having sex before me in high school. They all had partners before I did. And it's funny because when they didn't have a steady stream of sex, if they broke up with that partner or whatever else, like they were all like anxious and really wanted sex and craved it. And I like didn't crave it until I started having it. So I was kind of happy I waited. I made my sexual debut. Some people like to say lost their virginity, but I don't like that term. I didn't lose anything. And my virginity is not something to lose or to gain or to have. I made my sexual debut on New Year's Eve when I was 17. So at the end of high school with my high school boyfriend, with the encouragement of all my friends. I remember it was at my house in my basement actually, and there was like a separate room off to the side, and they were saying like, "Oh my god, yeah, go for it. He loves you so much." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so nervous." And they were like, "No, no, no, go for it." And so I was like, "Okay, first time I get drunk," and that turned out to be, obviously that has mixed results. I don't know if I would suggest that, but that's what happened. And then I went into university and I had multiple deep partnerships where I got to experience lots of love and connection and experimentation and different flavors of sexuality. I was really, really fortunate. I was in love 3 times in university, all of them engineers just like me, and I loved and still love them all. But nearing the end of university is when it happened. So I lost my connection to my pleasure, to my orgasm. And when I think back, it was as simple as I didn't pee after sex and I started feeling a little bit of discomfort there. And I was really worried and concentrated on the fact that I was about to be separated from my partner. I was about to go on this big trip and he couldn't come with me. And we were so deeply in love and we knew that things might not be the same when we got back. And yeah, I just started kind of mixing that worry with this like slight tingle of pain. And then somehow I just got so scared that this pain would continue, that my pussy would continue being so sensitive. And so that's exactly what happened. Right. And of course, I know this now and I can see it a lot clearer now that what was happening was this psychosomatic thing where I basically expected to feel a certain way. And so I did feel that way. But oh my gosh, at the time, all I knew is that was scared that I would never experience that kind of connection again. I traveled solo for over a year during this period of my life. And so no sexual partner was around for very long. And I didn't have access to the same medical care that I do when I'm at home. I I still managed to threesome my way across Asia, just meaning that, I don't know, threesomes just happened to find me at that time in my life. And it was always very fun, but it wasn't orgasmic, right? Like I had a lot of fun, but I didn't experience deep pleasure. I didn't experience orgasmic expansion or mastery in any way. And most of the times, because my main pain was around penetration, most of the times it didn't work and I just didn't know why, but I kept trying because I was so desperate to get back to that person that I had been, right? This confident, sexually thriving being who had identified so much with my own sexuality, my own sexual power. And so I started losing a piece of who I was. And I started feeling really disconnected from my body. I started feeling like I was broken. And then, even worse, I started feeling unworthy of partnership because, I told myself, how could I be in a relationship if I couldn't show up fully in sex the way I wanted to? And I went through cycles of hope and despair. And yeah, the worst was that I really didn't have a home base to investigate this. And so when I got home, oh my God, I tried everything. I went to so many doctors. I got given wax dildos, which, if you guys remember, one of the first episodes is called Doctor Prescribed Dildos, where I talk about this story basically of like trying and failing. And like that was part of where I was at when I first started this podcast. And like it wasn't the size of my opening, it wasn't my pelvic floor strength, like I had this random kook doctor who's investigating this and like trying to get medical grants and stuff to work on this. But like she gave me, I kid you not, like a box full of like wax, different sized dildos. And I'm like, this isn't what I need. Like I felt like she wasn't listening to me. She didn't understand the depths of it. She was like, well, what foods are you eating? And like, let me put these electrodes on your ass and like see how you can control your pelvic floor. And she's like, oh yeah, you have great pelvic floor strength. I'm like, yeah, that's not the issue. There's something else happening here. And so like, right. And this was the best pelvic physiotherapist I could find. And then, of course, later I found a better one who was more from an osteopathic perspective. But so the thing that was missing is that our brains are our largest sex organ, right? And our brains have certain pathways that get lit up and activated when we do certain activities. So your brain goes, oh, it's sexy time. Let's open up the sex pathway, or one of the sex pathways. And my sex pathway had been trained to be fearful and to experience pain. So even if there wasn't pain, it would tell my body that pain was there. Pain is a fascinating thing to explore. There's books and books on this. And at one point, my osteopath did have me investigating pain as the subject because like our brains really translate certain experiences into pain. And like the fact that some of us can tolerate more pain than others is so fascinating. And so, I mean, I did manage to experience pleasurable sex a few times. And so that always gave me hope. I was like, well, there was a time where I did it in the last few years. So all that to say, I've been there. And that was when I needed my sexual and orgasmic reclamation. And I'm going to walk through the different steps, different pieces that are really essential to orgasmic reclamation, who it's for, what you might be feeling if this is for you. And I'm going to talk about my own experiences and like where I've used certain practices, because some steps are really essential to me and other steps I didn't really need. So it really is based on you and your experience. Don't take this as a step-by-step process. Take it as like, hey, is this relevant to you? No? Okay, then leave it aside. Is this relevant to you? No? Okay. And so really like let's just take a look at the first stage of orgasmic reclamation. So this is for people who feel disconnected from their sexuality, or maybe they don't have a self-pleasure practice. Maybe they feel shame or fear or confusion around desire. Maybe they don't know how to touch themselves or masturbate. Maybe porn or erotica feels really foreign and really scary. Maybe there's lots of fear and conditioning around what they're allowed to want or allowed to be. Maybe they haven't really received any real sex education. And a huge part of this is feeling powerless or unsure in their sexual expression. So even if they used to have it, this also happens. Like we can also dive back into this phase. So many of the people who come to me for coaching are people just like me who had a sexual expression before and then lost it somewhere along the way. And sometimes there's a really big trigger, like, a new medical diagnosis. Like, like what if they had a stroke or they started experiencing depression and went on different medications, and all of a sudden they couldn't access their desire and their turn on in the same way, or their pleasure. And they started going, oh my God, because so many of us realize that innate connection earlier in life, but then also a lot of us get disconnected later. So that's what happened to me, right? It's the connection and then the disconnection and then the, oh my God, wait, what? And so we are kind of fortunate if we've had the connection before, because then we know we can get back to it. But when you can't find the answers anywhere, it's terrifying, right? And so the truth about the reclamation phase is that it's all about empowerment. It's about knowing your orgasm is yours, that your pleasure is yours, that you deserve it, that you're worthy of it, and that it's possible for you. And it's not a linear process. So let's talk about the different pieces. There's 5 different pieces I want to talk to you about today. So the first is celebrating sexual choices. So the key parts of this are, that there's no wrong sexual choices. We want to remove the shame from fantasies. We want to engage with a healthy curiosity. We want to explore. Exploration is sacred. We want to really encourage permission and freedom and choice, to celebrate where you're at and just see what the next helpful choice is without bringing any judgments on that. It's normal. It's okay. It's beautiful. Any and all sexual choices. In my story, this didn't really happen to me, right? But for many, it does. For many, this is one of the first steps. It's being able to celebrate your own body, being able to celebrate your curiosity, being able to say, okay, what's here? And again, this might not be step number 1, but it is one of the first steps, one of the things to consider. So I'd invite you to reflect here. I'll give you some exercises and some prompts depending on what it is. So here, I'd ask you to reflect, what parts of your sexuality have you never celebrated, only tolerated, or hidden? So maybe take that back with you, journal on it, and let me know, what parts have you never celebrated or stopped celebrating, right? Like I stopped celebrating my playfulness, my pleasure-filledness, because I became so afraid of it that I couldn't celebrate it and I wasn't experiencing it. And so I stopped being able to celebrate it. And so I was just so focused on what was wrong instead of what was right. And that can get us stuck in some really hard places. So the next piece number 2, is worthiness and deservingness. So many women believe and many people believe that pleasure is for others, and reclamation restores this sense of sexual sovereignty, your permission, your queenliness, your birthright, your freaking power. Right? The idea that we are all sexual beings and that's something to be celebrated. There's also a key piece in here, which is like anatomical instructions. So, knowing about the erectile network, right? So like, I believe I have a podcast episode about this, or anyway, you can go look this up in, it's called Women's Anatomy of Arousal. Lots of detailed diagrams and explanations there. It's one of my favorite books on this topic. It's great for men too, if they want to know more about the female sexual pleasure system. But in a very, very brief, basic overview, right? It's like knowing, okay, where's the outside? Where's the doorway, right? Where's the inside of the mucous membrane? That's not the outer lips, but it's the inner lips and that inner, mucousy membrane. And how do you treat that part? What can you not really do? What can you do? What's going to make it sore? What's going to make it feel pleasure, right? How big is the clit in reality? Because it's so much bigger than just that tiny, tiny little piece that we can see. That piece is like, 10%, if that, maybe 5% of the entire body, right? And then there's, the vaginal opening, and there's the whole length of the canal. There's understanding that the G-spot is actually more like a tube. And it's this big, squishy, erectile tube that surrounds the urethra. And that's at the top. That's the anterior side. So if you went into a vagina and you kind of pushed towards the person's belly, that's where you'd find that. And that's really sensitive, for example, when you're not turned on enough. And when I say erectile tissue, I mean the same as a penis, where it gets hard and wet when it's ready for sex. And that just because there's a little bit of wetness on the outside of the vagina doesn't mean that it's ready to get something stuck inside of it, right? And on average, it takes about 20 minutes to fully puff up and be fully erect. And yes, vaginas can be erect, and they should be before getting entered to not feel pain. And some people are more sensitive to this and some people aren't, right? And so the idea that somebody might be high maintenance, right? There's this fear that steps in of like, oh, but I need a lot of care and gentleness in this area, and like some women can just get pounded, and like what does that mean about me when I can't just receive all that like tough loving? Like there is nothing wrong with you. You are worthy and deserving of pleasure, and you can celebrate your pleasure in any form it takes. And if somebody isn't willing to slow down with you, or maybe if you're heterosexual, a man doesn't know that this is part of the sexual experience because he's only experienced that other type, it might be your job to educate him. And if he does say you're too much, that might not be the right person for you. Chances are he's going to be so excited to be taught more about your body, to be taught more about sex, to learn more about how to please a woman. And again, if he's not, consider maybe that isn't the person for you. So all these different parts of the erectile network, right? Like knowing what the outside is, knowing what the doorway looks like and feels like, knowing what it looks like and feels like when it's ready for penetration and for deeper pleasure. Knowing that there's two giant erectile network pieces on the outside of the vagina, that they're called vestibular bulbs, and they expand and get erect and make everything cushy. And that the G-spot, again, like if you touch it right away, it's like, ooh, that's sore. But if you touch it 20 minutes later, it's like, oh yeah, that feels really pleasurable. It's like, yeah, because it's hard and wet now. It's ready. The clit does the same. And so does this little gentle area that's right between the vaginal canal and the anal canal on the base. It's like this like kind of like a thin membrane that expands. And again, it's all just providing this beautiful cushioning and understanding that, understanding the deeper levels of that. Please go look all this up. Grab diagrams, grab a mirror, look at yourself while you're doing this. This is part of orgasmic reclamation, is understanding the tool itself that we're trying to use. Our body was designed for pleasure. That is the most incredible and important piece of information that I could ever think of. So, that's my little rant about our bodies. And I'll do full episodes on this later. And again, you can go look at the book called Women's Anatomy of Arousal by Dr. Sherry Winston. It is pure gold. Okay. In the worthiness and deservingness piece of sexual and orgasmic reclamation, start making simple life choices that empower your sexuality, right? Buying sexy underwear, sexy mirror dances for yourself, all those tiny little steps, walking with full confidence and sexiness. Like people find pole dancing and burlesque classes and things like that really, really empowering for this exact reason. It brings back that sense of worthiness and deservingness of being a sexual being. Remember that worthiness comes before technique. You need to feel it. You need to go, yes, I deserve this. I deserve the most exquisite pleasure. And how dare you tell me otherwise? So one simple practice here before any self-pleasure is just telling yourself, I deserve pleasure. Saying it out loud. I deserve pleasure. Take slow, deep breaths and start to believe that with every bone in your body. You could also use the personal reflection prompt of, do you feel worthy of pleasure? If you felt fully worthy and deserving of pleasure, how would you act today? What would you do? And remember, it's not about sex. It's not all about sex. It's about how you walk, how you talk, how you dress yourself, how you show up to every moment of your life. That is going to teach yourself that you are worthy of this deeper pleasure, this aliveness that life provides. And so to connect it back to my own story, I really didn't feel worthy of a relationship after a while, right? So it's not always about pleasure. It's what part of your life do you not feel worthy and deserving of, right? I didn't feel like I could be in a relationship. I felt broken. And I needed to be reminded of the fact that I was indeed worthy. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact. I'm worthy because I'm alive. I'm worthy because I own a pussy. I'm worthy because I am. That's it. That's the full statement. I'm worthy. And I don't have to do anything or be anything to be worthy. I just am because I am alive. The same goes with feeling worthy of love, feeling worthy of connection, feeling worthy of friendship, feeling worthy of pleasure. It's all in the same spiral. It's beautiful. Okay, the next piece. So we have celebrating our pleasure. We have feeling worthy and deserving. Step number 3 and piece number 3 is speaking these desires out loud and just desires in general. Being in connection with our desires, starting to unravel that. Desires become safer when they're named, and silence breeds shame, and expression builds agency. And writing out the things that you want and learning how to say them out loud takes so much time. It takes years sometimes between going, okay, I want to be able to say things out loud, and okay, I said things out loud. And sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes weeks. Start by speaking the desire to yourself, telling it to yourself in the mirror. Start by writing it down. And then and only then, or only once you're ready, share it with a trusted partner. In a different phase of my reclamation and expansion, I was first asked by a man, I think like only a few years ago, what do you desire? And I couldn't answer. I didn't know. I froze. I actually froze. And I got stumped. And it's so important if this does happen to you to try to communicate either in the moment or later that, it's not because I didn't appreciate the question. The question is beautiful and please keep asking me. But I didn't know because I'd never been asked. And I didn't know because I didn't have the words for it. I couldn't explain what it was that I wanted. And so really keep asking yourself that question, keep tuning in. And some of the things I might suggest is, just asking yourself that question, what do I desire sexually? Writing out a list. Or there is a beautiful format you could use called the want, will, won't list. So write out all the things sexually that you want, write out all the things sexually that you will do, but aren't like a desire. They're like, yeah, I could do that. Like voyeurism, like, oh, I could do that, but like, I'm not, like, I don't want it. It's not like a fantasy. And then won't, stuff that you're like, I do not do this. Like on my won't list is calling you daddy. Nope, not going to do that. Don't like doing that. No. Also, if you want to call me a good girl, no, sorry, I'm not a good girl and I'm not going to be your good girl. Nope. Don't praise me and don't shame me. I'm just not here for it. I'm here because I like, and that's a personal preference. Some people, that is expansive and wonderful and pleasurable. No shame to them. But to me, that's an absolute no. And it took a second to realize that. And so, being clear on that, writing out the wants, writing out the wills, writing out the won'ts. All right, piece number 4, retraining attention and sensation. So this is one that I concentrate a lot on because for me, it was so necessary. This was the most key piece for me. So most women and people live in their heads during intimacy. So this piece of the reclamation brings back attention to sensation. Sensation is in the present. Remember about goal setting in sex. Have a goal, but then become so present that the goal dissolves because all you see and feel is this moment. Sex is emotional. Sex is presence. Sex is meditation. You don't need to perform presence, you practice it. You need sometimes we need permission to feel all the emotions, every single emotion. I know some of you have heard me talk about having sadgasms and angergasms, right? Like you just feel this overwhelming sense of some emotion come up and you just think, oh my gosh, that's everything I can feel right now. I can't feel pleasure. All I feel is this deep sadness and I don't even know why. Like sometimes people think, and this is an interesting part about being in my career, that sometimes people think that means that I'm somehow perfect at sex all the time. And the thing is, I'm not. And there was a beautiful moment not too long ago where a new sexual partner of mine like saw me go into like a place of sadness and I couldn't even explain why. Like I wanted to have sex and we were like on the verge of doing it and I just started crying instead. Like just full on tears and it just got worse and worse and it just like I was just gushing and we stopped everything. I had to feel something, right? And like again, I don't even know what it was. Like I can't remember, but I also, at the moment, I was trying to think about it. And all I knew was there was a sadness that needed to get out. And it felt really good to get out. And in that moment, I think that really gave him this like grounded sense that like, I'm a full human being and we all are. And it doesn't matter how much I know about sex, this is still going to happen to me. And this still happens to all of us. And there's no shame in that. Sometimes you want to feel pleasure and instead you cry. And sometimes it's orgasmic and sometimes it's not. And that's okay because we're opening ourselves in the state of sex. We are opening ourselves to so much sensation and emotion that anything could come through, right? And amazing sex is being present, right? So being present to all that could happen, it's a practice. That's why it's so much like meditation. So much of what I had to do with my own reclamation was training my body to feel what was actually there, right? It was training my body not to go to that place that it was expecting to go to, that fear and that pain, but instead going into what was really there. And one of the most amazing pieces I've found in orgasm is being able to train your body to focus on a certain body part and focus and focus and focus on the pure sensation that's coming out of one tiny little body part or maybe a bigger body part. And that's where the orgasm happens. It just kind of tumbles into this sense of pure awareness. So remember that this also may not be your most important step. It was mine, but it could be any of these pieces. Right? You're not me, I'm not you. Nobody's journey to reclamation looks the same. So this time I'm not going to give you a prompt, but instead an exercise. So if this is really speaking to you, I highly suggest you do something like this. So lay down in your bed or sit somewhere comfortable, close your eyes, and start to breathe deeper. Remember that your breath is the bridge between your conscious and your unconscious mind because you can do it both consciously and unconsciously. So breathe and focus on your breath. Use that to settle in. And then start to trace your body with your fingers. Right? Very, very simple. Let some skin show and simply touch your skin lightly and lovingly. And even maybe imagine that this is your first time you've ever been touched. And let yourself feel every tingle and every spot of moment of warmth and cold and numbness and electricity and emotion. Train yourself to feel everything. If an emotion comes up, feel that too, even if it's boredom, even if it's, what the fuck did this pleasure engineer person tell me to do? I don't understand. Feel it. Feel it. Name the sensations out loud, right? And sensations are the feelings that our body has, shivers and heaviness and lightness and soreness, even strength, right? Everything that we feel from our bodies is the sensation, is our sensations. And so just allowing those sensations to flow through your body and be present with them. allowing them, being present with them. That is the practice. And you might find that this leads you to a place of desiring more touch, more orgasm. So absolutely feel free to let that take a nosedive into some deeper pleasure. But also know that, like, this is so tough. This is so tough for all of us, especially in today's world. And so the more you can practice this and the more you can be with this, the better sex will be. So that is reconnecting to your sensations and retraining your attention and sensation. And so piece number 5 of orgasmic reclamation is reconnecting to your body itself. So learn your genitals as if it's your face. We all look at our faces so much in the mirror. We never spend time looking down there. Look, see, observe, touch. Whatever body part it is, it could be whichever part of you feels uncomfortable. And if no part of you feels uncomfortable, then do it for your genitals. And even if you want to focus on your belly, also focus on your genitals, because I guarantee your genitals need some attention. Use a small mirror, look at yourself, learn about your own anatomy, move stuff around, take little glimpses, learn about where you're sensitive, know these things about your body. Just reconnect to it. And it is just so empowering to be able to tell a lover that you know exactly how you like to be touched. There's no nervousness when somebody sticks their head between your legs because you know exactly what they're gonna see because you saw it this morning, Like, and you get to love what they're seeing. You get to feel this sense of oh yeah, that's a privilege. You get to see what's down there. Oh yeah. Naked dancing in the mirror is also absolutely revolutionary because that is the one essential step to confidence, right? It can be physical confidence, it can be body-based, sexual-based, everything. It's actually something that I offer in one of my freebies on my website. It's called the Confidence Code, and it's basically just walking you through the steps that I take in the morning to become this fully blossomed, confident being. If I really need an extra push, that's what I do, and it works every time, and it works in 5 minutes. Here's a couple prompts, here's places to celebrate yourself, get yourself from I don't feel great waking up to holy fuck, I love my body, let's go. It's 5 to 10 minutes long and it changes everything. So the exercises here, 2 different versions of this. One is take out a small mirror and look at your genitals. Move them around, take a look, and do this daily until it feels so comfortable that it's almost boring. And then you're okay, I got it. I'm so happy with my genitals. Even if you're I kind of know what looks down there. Yeah, I do that sometimes. Do it again. Refresh your memory. See if there's any more steps you can take. Do some research, right? And then number 2 is do naked dances in the mirror. Do helicopters with your dick. Flash your pussy to the world. Just do it. Just give it a go. Put on your favorite song. Strip down for yourself. Play with it. Don't be perfect. We're here to be playful, not perfect. All right, so by the end of the reclamation phase, and remember, again, this is not linear. You didn't do this wrong. If sometime you need to jump back into it, once you've done it, it's so much easier to do again, right? So if you ever get to a moment where you're oh, right, I'm back at this place, you know exactly how to move through it. You're oh, I got this. So you know that you don't necessarily need to go into this when you can say truthfully and without a doubt the following statements. 1, my desires are valid. 2, my sexual choices are valid. 3, I understand my body. 4, I know how to give myself pleasure. 5, I feel worthy and deserving of pleasure. 6, I trust myself sexually. And 7, I celebrate my pleasure, my body, and my choices. And any other statement in there, in that kind of category, that feels like it lands for you. I really encourage you to look at your naked body and your genitals with celebration and with curiosity, to do those journal prompts and find similar ones that are relevant to you. What do you want to celebrate? What don't you celebrate? What are your desires? What do you want? What are you willing to do? What won't you do sexually? Repeat to yourself that you're worthy and that you deserve pleasure, relationships, love, sex, whatever it is. that's feeling kind of sticky for you. And practice, 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 practice presence with your sensations and your emotions. And cherry on top, meditate if you can, because damn, that works. And remember that this is not the end, it's the foundation of your becoming. All right. So, the next 2 episodes, we're going to look at orgasmic expansion and orgasmic mastery. So, in orgasmic expansion, we look at the definition of an orgasm. We deconstruct the ideas and the limiting beliefs around it. We bring in more celebration and more understanding of what actually happens physically and mentally during an orgasm. It's like adding fire to our orgasms. We add relaxation and safety and softness and these essential ingredients to be able to add kindling to that fire. And I teach you the secret to being multi-orgasmic. And then when we move into orgasmic mastery, that's when we look at our sexual energy for empowerment, manifestation, and healing on more intense levels. So, like how orgasmic energy is taught in mystical teachings all over the world. We can look at how to harness sexual energy, how to store sexual energy, how to use it to heal. And the fact that that's only one piece of our power, because so much of our sexual power also just comes from the reclamation phase, right? You never need to get into mastery. In fact, I know a lot of people who are just kind of not interested. You talk about like using sexual energy in those ways, and they're like, yeah, okay. Like some people only really want the reclamation. Some people are like, great, I can orgasm. That's all I wanted. Cool. Awesome. Do you know how many clients come to me and just want an orgasm? They're just like, oh my God, I just want an easy orgasm. Cool. Okay, start here. Honestly, if you're having a friend who's telling you, oh my God, I don't know how to orgasm, amazing. Start here. And then also listen to the second episode and maybe just discard the third. Maybe the third one isn't for you. That's okay. Or maybe you're curious at the end of the expansion phase and you're like, okay, but now I'm curious what else is out there. Remember to meet yourself where you are, to celebrate every single step, and don't rush towards mastery. Be here right now, because that's where all the magic lives.